No matter what happens in Washington, the NPR Politics Podcast is here for you. For the latest news, insights, and analysis from the election and beyond, listen to the NPR Politics Podcast.
This is Yolanda Wallace, and you're listening to another episode of Mother's War on Violence. And today I got my brother in the studio, Mr. Terry Burnside with the House of Hope. And I have Corine Barnes, also with the with the Peoria Community CHRC. And I want to start off with a little history about Cure Violence and the involvement that the House of Hope has had with that. First of all, Cure Violence was a public health strategy that aims to stop the spread of violence in communities. It was started in 1995, and the project was for the violence prevention and ceasefire. So, they had the interrupters and things like that. And it had started here in Peoria in 2006 as ceasefire. And then now we're back, years later, and now it's called Cure Violence. And just wanting to talk to Terry, and then we'll let Corine, if she has something to add to it, just to talk about why Cure Violence didn't happen at the House of Hope and how that was going. And Terry, I'll let you go ahead and take that. Start off. Thank you.
Good morning again, Ms. Yolanda, and thanks again for having us. So just give you a brief snapshot of what that looked like. We were interested, once the Cure Violence was announced that they would become the Peoria, to launch their initiative. The part of the plan began with them identifying someone to oversee the project. At first, I guess a liaison between them and a community-based organization. We were a community-based organization that was identified. We applied for the opportunity once it hit the south side after it didn't go well on the East Bluff. So we threw our names in the hats. We were selected through the process to be the community-based organization to launch the initiative here in Peoria. There was a partnership created between us and the Peoria City County Health Department. That's where it began. We started having meetings early on, but the biggest issue was how the Peoria City County Health Department just deviated from the actual model on how the structure of that organization would look like. Began with a program manager, site supervisor, 5 violence interrupters, and 2 outreach workers. They took upon themselves to remove the case manager from the House of Hope and hire them full-time as Peoria City County Health Department employee. That was the first.
So I'm sorry, I'm just interjecting a little bit. So the person that was going to be the manager started off at the House of Hope.
So there was a process. So there was you had to apply to identify individuals who were interested in taking on these positions. We early on had found someone. There was a pool of people to apply for the program manager position, and obviously some things didn't work out. So I reached out to a young lady who I know would better fit that position, who had the experience, who was competent of how that model worked, and she applied. She was interviewed, and she was offered the position. I think some of the problem came in after she was offered the position, how they wanted her to kind of transition out away from the House of Hope and just work as a health department employee. And at that time, she declined to accept their offer. Okay. Once that happened, they went on to looking for other people to fill that position, and they found someone who definitely, in my opinion, no disrespect to her, just wasn't really knowledgeable of how this ordeal would have worked, or just had the knowledge of the model itself.
Okay.
So and then after that, we identified a site supervisor. I ended up taking on the site supervisor, took the big hat off as the executive director, because the site supervisor is an individual who is, in my opinion, probably the strongest position of all. You have to have a footprint in the community. You have to have knowledgeable of the individuals you're reaching out to, and you had to know and understand how to vet the individuals that you were bringing to the table.
Right, and you already do that.
Yes.
That's right.
So I took on that role, and we started moving forward. We went through a rigorous interview process, which entailed members from the community, a police officer, there was a school principal, community organization, a recreation center supervisor, and there was a couple other individuals with the health department who actually sat on this hiring panel. So everybody was vetted thoroughly, and we identified and filled all positions that were needed, from the program manager that the health department hired, but site supervisor, violence interrupters, and the case managers were fully employed, and we had hit the streets running when they pulled the rug out from under our feet.
And they had a stockholder board at first when they first started off with that, but for some reason it didn't continue, because I was a part of that board, and then I didn't hear anything else.
Wow. And that's the first I heard of that. I didn't know that there was another board that was going on at the same time. We were trying to fill positions. That's new news
Well,
to
it
me.
was going on before you guys started filling the positions, when we were having the meetings, the community forums, and they were choosing the people then.
Wow.
So, and they thought it would be vital that I would be part of it, since I pushed for ceasefire in 2006. So I was there, and when I contacted them to say I haven't heard anything else from you all after they had decided what they were going to do and start the hiring process, I didn't hear anything back from the gentleman that they had over the stockholders, getting them enrolled and stuff, the panel or whatever you call it.
Okay.
So, and then after they hired the young lady and they hired the interrupters, were these interrupters chose by the health department? Is that something that you had a part in, or?
So, not a shameless plug, but it was because of the report and the footprint that I have in the community, I was able to identify each one of the violence interrupters and the program managers. So not only did I handpick them, they still had to go through the vetting process with the hiring panel.
Okay, great. And Corine, do you want to add anything to that, or?
No, it's pretty accurate. The only thing that I do want to add, if you guys can hear me clearly, when I met Terry Burnside in 2021, he was doing a lot of work and research in the city of Chicago, an area where I'm at. And when he purchased a Commonplace, his vision was always to have multiple different resources and different approaches. So the ceasefire cure violence model was already being implemented, which is something that I have experience in. So this was always the intervention piece and motivation behind the transition to House of Hope Peoria from P-Town Car Club. So this was something he was advocating for before the opportunity came, and he developed a direct relationship with the individuals for cure violence. So I just want to include that piece, because I think there's a disconnect with that too, that there was a lot of work that Terry was doing on the ground before this opportunity came to the city of Peoria in the health department.
Right.
Is that accurate, Terry?
Yes, ma'am. Very accurate.
And then I would like to know, as far as the training, the onboarding, was the health department always in control of that? Because I thought the way it works in Chicago, that the manager does that type of thing, the role that you played, Terry. How was this community resource, Cure Violence, how was it, operated as far as the training, the onboarding, and all that kind of thing? Because you helped with that,
Yes.
to get those people there. Was that how was that?
So to kind of piggyback off of what Corine has already said is, having that firsthand knowledge and experience with these models and how they work. But the health department was very hands-on early throughout the whole process. And it's okay to have some oversight, but they were too busy trying to micromanage the situation, and that was a hiccup for us because we knew what we needed to know. We had the knowledge, we had the skill set, and we knew the understanding how everything worked. Identifying the people and the parties that come to the table to actually do the work, here again, that was based off of what we knew firsthand and having an pulse on the community.
And I like that word that you used, Terry, the community. I noticed that Cure Violence, after everything I researched and in my involvement prior to here in Peoria when it was ceasefire, it was always designed to be a community-based program, right?
Yes.
And do you think that if you would have had more say so on things as far as the operation of the interventions and things like that, and when to start? Because it took you guys a couple years before they began.
Yes. I mean, they started out on the East Bluff, and that didn't go well. So then when they announced that it would be happening on the South Side, that's kind of when we threw our names into the hat. We expressed our interest into it and kind of shared with them our firsthand knowledge on what we knew and what the structure and the model looked like. And here again, we identified the players, put our teams together, and we were fully functioning at the time when the health department decided to go a different direction. So they say we didn't have the capacity, which that's not true. We had the capacity. We hit the ground running. We finished a vigorous training. We had an onboarding process, and there was another week of training that the individuals had to do through Cure Violence, and they completed it. Once the funding was taken away from us, they even approached all the individuals that we hired and offered them positions. That now that the program's over with the House of Hope, would you guys be okay to coming over here and work for us? Here again, being a guy like me, I'd rather see somebody who's gainfully employed and with the credentials to be employed and applying themselves in whatever areas they need to in this particular area. They had the expertise. They were trained.
Right.
And they were great fits for the organization. So I never kicked against them going over to the health department.
Okay.
Because they had to eat. They had families to feed. So I understood that part.
Right.
Now, and I wasn't selfish on that piece. But for them to, just take it from us, it was their plan, their goal to actually have the program at the house, or excuse me, at the Peoria City County Health Department from the jump start.
That's terrible. Corine, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do just want to add, in regards to the model itself, that model, and I explained that to Terry early on, and when we were advocating for it, as a person who has a background in clinical mental health counseling, when you develop curriculums and programs, you do have to do an assessment to make sure that that program, service, curriculum is appropriate for that community. The community involvement is one piece, but that model utilizing returning citizens, credible messengers, I explained that early on into the health department that model would not work. And that whole $25,000 assessment, if it would have done correctly, they would have seen that would not work. When I did my assessment, looking more for the prevention services for the House of Hope and the Peoria CHRC, I had to talk to stakeholders, community members, the actual at-risk population. And I learned early on that a lot of the violence is being driven through a lot of family generational issues. And a lot of people, it's not gang related in a lot of these entities, even with our survivors of violence. So trying to implement that model, it had to be changed. The piece that I do want to add, they did not have a structure because the health department and a lot of individuals are not really knowledgeable how to implement this program. So Terry did ask me like the last 2 weeks if I could create a 3-week onboarding because the health department did not have anything. It took me literally 3 days straight to create a full 3-week onboarding process that I did implement for all of the Cure Violence staff members. I was never paid or connected to it, but looking at how serious Terry wanted this program to work, I did step in and provided that opportunity. But it wasn't just educating them on the model. I educated them on trauma-informed care. I made sure all the staff members are all certified in trauma-informed care, the data, how to collect and analyze the different hotspots. These are all the things that they did for 40 hours a week that the health department did not have any type of connection. I provided all the emails, the updates, the information to them. They never responded until afterwards. So they were properly trained, and right after they got properly trained, at the last 3 days of the onboarding process, we found out through the news that they were taking the funding. And that's how everyone found out.
Not through the, the health department?
No, because the deliverables that were supposed to be met, that they said that he did not meet, I sent that email on August 5th when it was due on August 13th. And that's a blessing in disguise that a lot of people know. And if they don't know already, I document everything. They had all the information, and that's why the constant interviews and things continues to change afterwards.
That's great. And also on the onboarding, I see that you had invited other resources and agencies within the community to educate the onboarding recipients for to go out and do their outreach with other agencies that were involved, and Mothers War on Violence was one of those.
Correct.
And
And I
that
did
was
invite the health department as well,
very
but
something
they
that
never showed up.
I beg your pardon?
I also invited the health department to also be
A part of it?
participants, actually, to be a part of that, because as an outreach staff, the whole purpose is their intervention. They're interrupting current things that are happening. So when Terry keeps saying that the structure was constantly being changed, because you have to have that prevention piece. That one thing is for the outreach staff to be there at that present time, but you have to have continuous resources and services to help that population.
That's
Because other than that, it's more of like a police approach. When anything happens, we're just going to just deal with it. How do you prevent it from happening? So having a community members and having the outreach staff be educated on all of the accurate resources that are beneficial for the population makes sense. So when they are walking around the community, they're able to not just interrupt something, but they can hand them an actual appropriate resource for them at that time, which was never implemented until that 3-week onboarding process.
And I would like to add that at a juncture throughout this ordeal, there was a conversation around some changes being made, or they would like to have seen some changes, with they being the health department. So they came up with a corrective action plan. We met the action plan request. We did everything they asked us to do, made the adjustments and corrections, and the day of the meeting was August the 13th. That particular day they wanted to meet, I was unable to meet because I was attending a funeral of my cousins. And I strictly just kind of told them I couldn't be at two places at the same time. My cousin's homegoing was more important than a meeting with the health department, and they did not want to reschedule. We reached out several times before and after that particular day, requesting multiple meetings with everybody from top down, and we were able to get anywhere. They wouldn't meet with us. But then when I didn't meet that particular day, they moved forward to go ahead and pull the funding.
Wow. And then I know that once the health department took over and they got the funds from the city of Peoria, that they had given you guys a physical agent, right?
Yes.
And so therefore there's no way that you being the executive director over the House of Hope could do anything without anybody's permission, right?
Yes, but let me correct that. So they didn't give us a fiscal agent. We had to identify a fiscal agent before we actually, but this process was initiated. So once we identified a fiscal agent, they the ones were in charge of overseeing and managing the grant. Period.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yes,
so you couldn't, you couldn't get anything unless the fiscal agent was able to, say it was okay.
Yes, we had invoiced things to them,
Okay.
and they would do all the payout and dispersing the resources.
Okay, and then people were getting paid. So during this process of the health department pulling out on August the 13th, or whatever that date was, is that correct?
That was the day I was supposed to meet that meeting. So the final day with them was August the 17th.
August the 17th. Okay. Were they able to pay the interrupters and the people who were?
Yes. So we had paid them at least a couple of pay periods even before any of this had taken place.
Okay.
But they were sharing with people like we didn't have the capacity, or we couldn't get our team together. But again, that was inaccurate. They had 2 pay periods long before they transitioned out and went over to the health department. So once they did go over to the health department, they did continue to pay out of the resources that were set aside for us.
Okay, so for 2 years, the program sat in the hands of the health department, and then finally you guys were able to implement and act on as the interrupters in the community this year, 2024.
Yes, we went in to sign a contract with them in November of 23. Like I said, it was a rigorous process. We got everything going. We finally was officially employed July 29th. So we were officially a team and working before the rug was pulled out from under our feet.
Okay.
And then I want to add, because I know can you guys hear me? I do want to include, and I want to be very direct, because when you say like the health department or House of Hope, Peoria, that's like an entity with multiple different programs and services. Right. A lot of these changes and these constant concerning issues were coming and were led not by the entire health department, but by Katie Indris. So there was a lot of changes. So I just don't, which caused a lot of difficulties when you're working with multiple different sections, such as the House of Hope Peoria and the physical agent. So a lot of the changing from the model and delegating other different things were done by one person.
Okay. And what was her role?
I still don't know.
Okay.
And I don't think it was ever very clear. Based off of the agreement and the contract that was provided, they were supposed to provide support and connections, like a in-between person of all of the different entities. But because of the lack of knowledge and education around this actual particular model, that's where it became an issue. So when I got involved, I didn't get involved and started to support until May of this year. So all of the previous conversations and structures I was not aware of. As many people know, I help out when needed. So as Terry reached out to me and asked me questions, if things made sense, I would provide my feedback, all the way down to the budget that they were utilizing prior to Terry at the East Bluff area. They try to use the same budget for the House of Hope Peoria, which was not a standard nonviolence budget. So I actually revamped it and created the correct appropriate budget that they continue to utilize. So it's a lot of things that were small and tedious, but were large, that would cause an issue when things weren't placed the correct way when it's supposed to start it, apparently 2 years ago. They should have had a standardized budget. Right. So a lot of the budget changes and the finances, that was continuously happening all the way up to the last day.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. And for clarity, Ms. Indris was an employee of the Peoria City County Health Department. She was like the liaison between the health department and the House of Hope.
Okay.
She worked under the direction of Ms. Monica Hendricks, which in turn, Katie Indris became the supervisor of the program manager that was allegedly supposed to have been for the House of Hope, but they hired her as a health department employee.
Okay.
So the Cure Violence did mention to them that the way that we at the city of Peoria Health Department was doing things how they were deviating from the model. That's not how that structure goes. The program manager is supposed to work under the CBO, not for the overseer, so to speak.
Right.
So they had issues with that early on and said this is not how the structure goes, and you guys you're doing it a lot different than it's been done in the past. So that was one of the biggest issues.
Okay. All right. I know that when they started on the East Bluff with Cure Violence, that was starting with Peoria Community Against Violence, right?
Yes.
And then something didn't work out with their funding, their prior funding of the Don't Shoot grant. So sometimes all these different moving parts are just kind of hard to to deal with because it has a long history in Peoria with this program, and we were so excited to have it here. So now that we are not doing that, what's new and what's next and what's happening at the House of Hope now?
So nothing has changed. We've actually ramped up. We've been doing a lot more things on different other fronts. One of our huge components that we are strongly engulfed in is the Community Healing Resource Center, which Corine Barnes, she is the program manager for that organization. And we've had a monthly calendar of events consistently beyond the Cure Violence issues. It's not stopped us from doing anything. So if she would like to briefly expound on that, she's welcome to.
Okay. Correct.
Absolutely. So as Terry mentioned, for about a year, I have not been in Peoria, so mainly for the 2023. So coming back, starting the whole revamp of what we call is a Peoria CHRC. The acronyms are for Community Healing Resource Center with our partnership that we have in the city of Chicago with Live Free. This is a model that they're utilizing more focused around prevention. It does have like a trauma recovery approach to it. And the difference between a lot of the other models is that it increases a lot around your spirituality. Right now, we're the only non-faith-based organization connected to multiple different churches all across the city of Chicago, Rockford, Waukegan, etc. So it's like an entire partnership of individuals who are providing not just resources, but also connect them to their spiritualities. So since the start of the revamp of May, we now provided over 200 services to family members, including the ATC, working with the reentry guys. We've been having an amazing support system with them where we'll meet with them 4 times a month. We increase and finalize our victim support resources that we've been doing monthly. With the increase of victims' compensation, we were able to also successfully bring a woman from the actual Attorney General office to educate the population on victims' compensation in the city of Peoria, while also providing additional resources. I can confidently say, but the participants that I have serviced, that a lot of my participants are receiving the resources and funding that they deserve, not just with the most recent homicides, but also with prior. So that includes not just violence, but a lot of the survivors. So we've been seeing a lot of increase of a lot of our survivors of gun violence are getting the resources as well that they were not aware of, along with our monthly services. So for us, our prevention piece is doing okay. We have very low resources, but we are still pushing that initiative and providing that support. In regards to the intervention piece, that is something that I've been supporting and assisting Terry with to get back up. And that intervention piece is connected with the outreach services. And that's really how that model is supposed to look. That intervention and prevention are together, and that connects with the victim support and the crisis intervention and other different things for our returning citizens and workforce development.
The Community Healing Resource Center is a plethora of organizations. There were 13 organizations picked throughout the state of Illinois, and we were one of the ones fortunate enough to get selected, with us actually being the only non-faith-based organization that's a part of that coalition.
Okay, awesome. And do we have any upcoming events?
The main one is this Sunday. We have with Miss Riley, who lost her brother to gun violence. one of the biggest things that I've been doing over the last few months is I've been partnering up with a lot of smaller non-for-profits or just individuals that's been doing a lot of stuff for the community for free, just because they're passionate and want to see a change. I've been supporting them with creating and structuring their non-for-profits and doing what I call as my nonprofit coalition, where multiple nonprofits who are from Peoria are working together in different areas to provide as much support for our population. So Riley, I met her during actually Miss Yolanda's event early on, and when she shared that this was always a vision of hers to do, I've been working with her for the last 2 weeks and turning that vision into a reality. So moving forward, she'll be able to not only just have this event coming up this Sunday, where we're going to not just honor her brother, but all of the other siblings who have been lost, not just only with gun violence, because this is bereavement sibling month. And we just want to acknowledge everyone who lost a loved one. But moving forward, 18 and up, she'll be providing monthly support groups for people who actually lost their brother or sister to gun violence. So that's one of the main ones that we have. And then we are just finalizing our calendar for December. So a lot of our prevention services and monthly calendars, we are still physically in the House of Hope building alongside with Grow Community, which is a mental health service for males. And for the city of Peoria, they're stationed in Chicago, but they're also in our physical location. The overall goal is to be that resource hub and provide different entities that you can directly go and get. So we do have Grow Community as well, providing mental health counseling only for males, adults and youth in the city of Peoria as well. So our monthly calendar will be up, and the resources for December, those will be on our Peoria CHRC page.
Share about the Saturday's event.
Saturday's event, I thought you was going to go for that one. We do have our partnership by me being, I kind of felt like I'm a Peoria family member a little bit, especially, with all the most recent things that are happening. But I have been driving back and forth from the city of Chicago into the city. That's a whole nother episode in regards to the most recent thing with our Grinch That Stole Christmas. But with the connections that I do have and Terry have in the city of Chicago, we have been doing partnership and also providing resources. So a lot of our Peoria partnerships are now providing assistance and support for our city of Chicago population. So we do have a community feeding and resource event tomorrow, actually from 12 to 3 in the city of Chicago on Roosevelt. That's also on our Peoria CHRC page. And I'm encouraging people to follow our page as much as possible. And if you would like to be a partner, I am looking to house another partnership event next month as well, as we get ready to go into January. And one of the biggest things is I'm just looking for people who are okay with working with each other. And the focus is, not financial, but actually to make a real difference. And just know that if you're connected with me, at myself and our Terry Burnside, we do have that collaboration with our population in Chicago. So it would be an opportunity for you to also branch your organization and be in 2 different areas as well.
I wanted to say the other thing that has been happening at the House of Hope is the crime survivors for justice. Am I saying that correct,
Yes.
Terry? Okay. And this year we had an opportunity, and I had the opportunity to share this with some other crime survivors who came from Peoria, Illinois, that the House of Hope and the Peoria Community CHRC were able to help us get to Washington, D.C. For the March on Washington for Crime Victim Survivors.
Yes.
And that was in August, and I am still rooting over that because I had such an awesome time. I felt comfortable. Terry, you want to expound on that a little bit more?
Yes. So Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice, they're an allegiance between Alliance for Safety and Justice. It's a national network made of about 10, 12 states throughout the country. We're over 30, 40,000 members strong. I, along with I am a co-chapter coordinator here in Peoria for Illinois. And it's just an amazing partnership as well. We're doing great things for survivors of victims of violence, not just gun violence, but sexual assaults, gun violence, just any violence of any sort. So it's a huge organization that's doing great things as well.
Yes, and that March on Washington, and we went to the White House and we heard speakers. There was music, there was food. They were ready for us. The crime victim survivors were able, and justice were able to accommodate our room and board, pay for the transportation. I mean, the House of Hope is still really doing a lot of great things. And so what can we expect from the House of Hope now that all this stuff with Cure Violence is done and over? Of course, probably those things that Corine talked about that we already doing. You'll still have boots on the ground when there is a victim of a crime, of a gun violence, right?
Yes. So we're still busy. We're still in the trenches. A lot of our work is focused around prevention, being proactive. We're still addressing a lot of things in the community. We get wind of something that may be going on with some individuals, whether it be some beefs or something. So we're trying to get out in front of things before they escalate to prevent this thing from getting out of pocket. So that's been our work just on the preventive front. A lot of things around here in the city of Peoria have been more like reactive. We try to be more proactive. As you well see, as the rest of the city can bear witness to it, ever since they pulled the plug on this thing with the Cure Violence thing, the crimes, the violence, shootings, murders have spiked tremendously. Not saying because of us, we're out of the area, but, we are still busy. We're meeting some of these guys where they are. We have constantly de-escalated and diffused situations before they get out of hand. So still having a presence in the community, making a difference, providing supports and resources for victims of violence or any survivor, that's what we're doing. So we've been a lot more busier probably the last couple of months than we've been probably all year.
Awesome. And I'm wondering, Corine and Terry, what are your thoughts about, I was reading that they were thinking of taking the Cure Violence money and helping out in the court system and all that kind of thing. I'll let you go ahead and then I'll tell you what I thought about it. So go ahead.
That's beyond me. I mean, I pray that whatever they do allocate the resources there, they go into the right hands and do the right thing and just get the best results. So kudos to them. Hats off to them. I wish them well.
And for my piece, the biggest issue that I'm noticing is it has nothing to do with the hands. It's just the competency and knowledge that a person has for these type of programs and services, and to make sure that it's meant for the actual population that it's supposed to be for. I'm noticing a lot of people making their own decisions and not actually talking to the people who are being impacted to get their actual buy-in and feedback in regards to what they need. With the whole revamp of the structure I created starting in May, that's one of the biggest things that I have been doing and focusing on as a clinical mental health therapist, as well as a strategic processor. In creating these systems and curriculums, you have to talk to the population to find out what they really need. So we have been successful with that piece, but wherever the funding goes, my suggestion is just to make sure that people are just actually focusing and having those conversations and not just, reading articles or a textbook to come up with what this population need. The increase with a lot of the violence, a lot of people it's not gang related. Mental health, not just because I'm a clinical mental health therapist, but mental health, especially around these type of year and these type of seasons, it's causing people to do a lot of impulsive things. And it doesn't matter your economic background, your trauma or anything. We're just in a place of a lot of hurt and trauma in the city of Peoria, and it's just not being properly addressed. And that's one of my biggest concerns, and one of the things that I would continue to advocate for the city of Peoria, because I am passionate what I do, and I actually see a lot of progression in a lot of other areas, because there are homicides, but there could be a lot more. And that's just based with the population that I have that are now utilizing proper coping skills and just understanding how to navigate through their emotions when dealing with simple, things of a car accident to, kids getting into confrontations with each other, trying to have a proper mediation instead of choosing violence as what has been the cultural norms that have been shown in the city of Peoria.
Yes, and again, to respond to what you said, Ms. Yolanda, about the resources falling to the right hands, the thing that's kind of troublesome to me is how you want to discontinue a program or stop an organization from doing certain work that it's designed to do, but you don't have a replacement. That's the issue I have. They're almost out of desperation, trying somewhere hard, as I'm hearing different organizations approaching me, being asked to do things around the violence prevention piece, and these people aren't even competent or even knowledgeable.
They don't know anything about it.
So that's the other thing I'm concerned about, the resources falling to the wrong hands, because there's been a lot of resources allocated in the city for violence prevention, and
they don't work.
They're not doing violence prevention or violence intervention.
They're not. And that would be my thoughts on it as well. When I heard about they were going to do it in the youth services, juvenile, with the courts and stuff. And I thought, this is just another, I don't have anything personal against anybody, but when I look at the systems that are around Peoria, and we have a habit of overlooking the survivors. I don't know how else to say that, but that's my inclination on when I talked to the state's attorney, Jerry Brady, years ago, and the state's attorney before him. And then now we have Jody Houston. She's back in office again. And they have victims advocates that go with you to court, but the things outside of the courtroom are a different story. And that's where the community piece is supposed to go into action. But our city of Peoria is more, and it's good to have a lot of education, a lot of experiences, a lot of clinicians and stuff like that. But where is the community? Why aren't community-based organizations a big part of sitting at the table when it comes to doing this? Now, if you feel like the community-based organizations don't have the administration equipment to do what it needs to do to be successful, then, you educated people who have those degrees in human resources, why can't you start that hub to support the community organizations who actually deal with these issues? I'm all about survivors. I'm not ever going to stray my views on the point that I stand for, and that's because there's not a lot of survivors support in our community.
And to your point, it's just my hope that, and I've seen it all too many times, how the community, they're voiceless. So a lot of decisions are being made for us. When I say us, I mean community. A lot of decisions are being made for us without us.
Right.
And that's the issue.
And there's nothing to build up in our city for the survivors to re-enter, not only just the ex-offender to re-enter, but for the survivors themselves to re-enter into the community, to be a part of the community again. Instead, you have these different organizations that are doing everything for them and not allowing the survivors room to go in. So, the survivors are feeling like, I'm experiencing anxiety, I'm experiencing trauma, and they're doing it, so they're taking the lead on it, so let them go ahead. We need to be able to take the community back. Like there used to be the neighborhood associations who were a big part of the community that we don't have anymore. And we used to have someone on city council, city council at large, who was actually a person who would allow this, who would help the neighborhoods to get together with a yearly event, trying to get the people out their houses and out the neighborhood. And that type of thing needs to start over again for us to rally up the survivors and the community of crimes, crime survivors. Yes.
No, and I agree. And I feel confident that what we're doing now as a whole, even with yourself, Mr. Yolanda, that's what we're doing. One thing about myself is I don't wait to ask permission to do anything, especially because I don't work for anyone. So that same approach of educating these smaller not-for-profit, now that I'm finalizing my doctor's degree in business administration, with the structures and the programming, the curriculums, and how to properly implement it, we've been successfully doing that for the last 5 to 6 months, providing that resource where small not-for-profits are already getting funding that are connected and under my umbrella. But the victim support, I feel confident that the individuals that I have been able to identify and that I'll be supporting will do that same thing of what you're saying, because we're not only working with just the people who lost their loved ones to gun violence, which would be properly implemented by myself with a grief cycle education starting monthly the month of December, but we also have the resilience with Mr. Terrell Rickman, who's been a 2-time gun survivor of violence himself. He's doing a great job working with that population of assisting them going through their healing journey. With yourself, Yolanda, not only do you have the John Buckley Garden for a place where individuals be able to properly grieve over their loved one, but with your monthly support groups that you're having for not just violence survivors, but also family members of all type of grief that are non-health related. We do have our finalization with Lorraine Washington, who's been a huge advocate in the city of Peoria, who'll be providing domestic violence support groups. So we're getting ready to do that. And my just only feedback to everyone is, instead of just watching what everything is not happening, if we focus on what we can do and just continue to get connected to the people who are doing it, it would change within itself. And that's what I can't look at the people who are getting these millions of dollars in Peoria to do anything. All I can do is just focus on the people who the money is for and the people who are not getting it, and give them actually something to supplement with. So I'm very thankful and grateful, because everyone I'm connected to, even a list, are not getting paid to do this stuff.
Right.
And you guys are like showing up every month to provide this resource. And eventually I feel confident that it's going to pay for itself in the long run.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. For our listening audience, I know today was a little bit lengthy, but it was a conversation that needed to be had. And thank you, Mr. Terry Burnside, the Executive Director of the House of Hope, and Ms. Corine Barnes with Peoria CHRC, the manager. Am I saying that right?
Yes, and the owner of Corine Logics, LLC,
Okay, Corine
supporting
Logics.
all small not-for-profits.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Have a great day.